Well, my first time, let's see.
Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Conspiracies, Monsters and More, the CMM Talk Show. I'm one of your hosts. My name is James. I got Dean and my boy Duke, and we are going to be bringing you some of the craziest conspiracies, monsters, and anything else from the internet right directly for your viewing. This is more of an informational channel, I guess I could say, from our resident historian, who is Duke, and then followed with just shenanigans. We're going to try and keep it light, keep it fun. We would love for everyone. There is going to be an email associated with every single episode in the description. Send us your clips, send us your stories. We'd love to read them on air. And if you want us to use your names, say so. If not, either make one up or tell us not to, and we'll make one up. But yeah, hit that email down there. Send us your stories. We want to hear them. And with that, I guess, boys, how was y'all's 4th of July weekend? Real quick, while we're here.
Well, mine was pretty uneventful, to be honest.
Right. Well, I mean that's a good thing. I mean, I almost blew myself up twice, so that's a plus.
Well, Kansas City, man. So they shot off fireworks from basically dark till about 2:30 in the morning. Yeah, it was America
Jesus.
here, buddy.
Hell yeah! No, my a buddy of mine, we went over to his place with the camper, and yeah, he spent, I don't know how much he spent on fireworks. Man, it had to have been like $1,000. There was half his garage was fireworks.
So,
And I took the kids over to the local shop, let them pick out some shit and whatnot, and we picked out, me and my wife picked out a couple cool ones or whatever, and we were shooting them off, but we shot some off before the city did, and then they did theirs, and then we continued. Hell, I don't know, we went till like midnight, 1 o'clock ourselves. It was a good time.
fucking America.
Yeah, my dog Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. Scipio for short.
I love it.
He is afraid of fireworks. Now, guns do not bother him, but fireworks, a different story. I don't know how he deciphers between the two, but yeah, he don't do fireworks real well.
It's a flashback.
See, I had a hound dog that couldn't. I had a hound dog that couldn't decipher it, because every time he heard a firework, he thought the hunt was on, and he wouldn't shut the hell up. I ended up having to bring him in the house and put him in a crate. It was kind of a nightmare.
I was there, man. I was there.
But I guess I know I'm back in Nam, man. Anyway, anyway, yeah. For everyone listening, we're not just some like city bumpkins out, trying to make a talk show about, and sound like a bunch of jackasses. We actually kind of want to take what we've learned in the woods and whatnot and apply them to different stories that are around, and myths, legends, theories, and just kind of see what we get from looking at them from like a woods person's point of view, if you will.
Yeah, we're not. So make it clear, we're not the weekend hunter that is sitting in a shooting house type all the time. We're, I used to hunt, and I'll give them an area, the Mobile Delta, River Delta, which is areas that you'd have to get to by boat, and very hard hunting, on these big islands and areas that nobody goes to, hog hunting or deer hunting or, things like of that nature. It's not just a, weekend hunter. We spent the bulk of our lives in the woods.
Yeah, you guys definitely have. I did growing up for sure. I mean, until I was about 22. You know, I was Southern Missouri, so I never seen a Bigfoot. Pretty sure I seen an elk, or heard of an elk anyway. I didn't get to see it, but yeah, that's close as I've been, boys.
So, but yeah.
Well, I mean, so being around the paranormal world,
well, actually, Dean, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of your background and your thoughts on some of this stuff? We haven't gotten to you yet, and then we can give Duke can give his too, because we haven't finished our introduction portion yet.
Sure. I keep forgetting, man. First episode, right? So
I know, right? A little bit of jitters. We'll get through it.
Yeah, we're working through it. But okay, so my background as far as the paranormal and conspiracy thing. So I actually worked with one of the largest paranormal groups in Kansas City. In fact, we started with one other group, started the Paracon here, the largest Paracon, KC Paracon, and I'm still good friends with one of the co-hosts of the Ectoplasm show. That's basically how I met his name is Ron Moorhead, by the way, and he was one of the featured guests, like our first or second year at the Paracon. And I actually got to shake his hand and talk to him a little bit. But I have some background in paranormal investigation. I did that for 2 years. And, I mean, there's theories out here, especially with Bigfoot. You know, I've heard theories. Even Moorhead talks about maybe it's some kind of a quantum, like, type entity, like a shapeshifter. But it's a really interesting read, man. Like, definitely looking to... I'm going to put your Moorhead stuff in there. He's the guy that does the linguistics and stuff, so... I will put all that stuff in the description, but yeah, that's kind of my background. So I do have a little background in the paranormal area, so it's just kind of neat that it crept back in. So, but what about you, Duke?
Well, I'm just a outdoorsman. I'm from real rural area. Spent all my life pretty much in the woods. Hunting, fishing. When I was little, we played with things like rattlesnakes and stuff like that. And learned real quick what animals were in the woods, and you could decipher what animal you came across. If you were take your time and breathe and don't jump to conclusions and use like a scientific method. I mean, I know it sounds far-fetched for someone like a redneck country bumpkin type, but
no,
you rule out the knot, and what's left is what you have to deal with as far as figuring something out. Say, like, if you ran across a Bigfoot, knowing the difference between its mannerisms and a bear. I mean, someone who isn't accustomed to, say, a bear or something could mistake. I could see how it could be mistaken. But, some of these people, I believe, because they know the difference. They know, like James, he bear hunts.
Yep.
Or has bear hunted, and so he knows mannerisms of a bear. And if he ran across something that wasn't a bear, he would know the difference.
Well,
I mean,
you guys live in the woods, to be clear. Both Duke and James do. I mean, they really do. I used to hunt and stuff, but I don't have the background nearly like you guys do. So I just want to make that clear.
Anyway, so I guess without further ado, I'll hand things over to, again, our resident historian, Mr. Duke, who is the big sexy man with the southern accent. What's our first one you're bringing us today, Duke?
Have y'all ever heard of the incident at the Choctaw Indian Nation in Oklahoma in 1855?
No.
I have not.
I'll go ahead and just tell the story, and then we can go from there. As far as what you think and everything. Anyway, throughout history, the Native American Choctaw were no strangers to war, whether it be against Native American tribes or white men and their government who encroached into their territory. Choctaw history has always been passed down generation to generation orally, whether it's history or folklore. You know, they have a proud warrior tradition and will not back down from anything. Unfortunately, you know, in 1831 and 1833, they were forced to travel the Trail of Tears on the way to Oklahoma, you know, suffering many hardships and tribulations and many dying. And they settled in the area of Oklahoma that's now Leflore County. And it's funny because that was the chief when the Indian Nation started, Choctaw Indian Nation started in Oklahoma. The chief was Chief Leflore, and the county area was named after him. Well, in around 1855, they had been there for like 20 years. One of the prominent members of the Choctaw Indian Nation was a Joseph Leflore, and like I said, the Choctaw Nation had one of the best areas of Oklahoma. They had actual wooded area. They had area to farm, good land, so they were in a pretty decent spot. Well, they had settled down as a a peaceful farming type, community. They traded with it, with the Americans that lived nearby and other tribes in the nations, and we're just having a peaceful life. And, things seem to happen when you think everything's peaceful. That's when things go awry, and it did for them. It started where they started having animals go missing. Farmers would have cow go missing, or horse, or whatever, and they started having roving bands just at night, kind of watching, trying to catch these thieves, because it was like thieves were doing it, cattle rustlers or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they go on about doing this, and like I say, when uneventful life can lead to something horrifying, and it does here. And one night the thieves took several livestock one night, and it started raiding every night. Things kept going on, and they tried to get the law, the Indian Nation law, whatever, military to help out, find out, but they wouldn't help them. So the Choctaw took it in their own hands and formed bands. And one night screams were heard. The thieves had targeted the women and children, stealing them, taking them. Choctaw wanted immediate action. No one would help, so they formed a war band. Like I said, they were born of war, so they could go back to it. Well, Joseph Leflore was the head of this kind of war band to go try and find their loved ones that were being stolen. Well, he was joined by a family called the Tubbies. Now, the Tubbies were a bunch of huge men that were known for mounted combat. They were some real rough, rugged types. And they took out one night into the forest, and they were tracking. They found tracks, found where these thieves were going. So they tracked them way off into the woods, deep in the forest. As they kept going, they came up into this clearing. And when they walked into the clearing, the horses were already acting funny. They weren't wanting to go. You had to kind of force the horses. Well, finally, they had to actually get off the horses to get into this clearing. And right then, they could tell something was wrong. You could smells. Something wasn't right. And as they kept walking into the clearing, Joseph McFlore saw something. He took off after it into another section of woods off in this little opening they were in. And all of a sudden, he came up on the bodies of their loved ones. They were torn apart, just ripped apart, and like they'd been eaten on. And he looked up, and there was I think 4 savage-looking Bigfoot. They looked like Bigfoot. The way that it was explained, it sounds like a Bigfoot. And they were the ones that had done all this. Well, Joseph Leflore went after one of them, and he got caught by this Bigfoot who actually ripped his head off. I mean, just killed him right then and there. Just ripped it. And the beasts were started pounding their chests, like they were getting ready for battle. And LaFleur's horse was killed. He was killed. The Tubbies were shocked to see what they were seeing. The same Bigfoot, like multiple, 4 or 5 of them. And they ended up started shooting into them, and with arrows and guns. And supposedly they killed a couple of them, and their family members had all been killed, and that's pretty much to this day the county where this all happened is Leflore County, and you can go into the Indian registry and pull up the names. The family, the Tubbies, you can pull them up. You can pull up Joseph LaFleur. But there's no written history of this story except it being passed down to the Choctaw Nation. And I've never known of Native Americans to lie about anything. They pretty much, their oral history is their history. It's as good as written down as far as I've ever, came across. I myself am Native partly, and it's just it's crazy. You hear Bigfoot, but you don't hear many stories like this where they're actual, like, demons, attacking women and children and taking them and ripping them apart. And I just thought that was a heck of a story. And the way the story goes is you pretty much have to draw your own conclusion if you study into this. Like I say, you can pull up the names, the people, like Joseph LaFleur. It shows that he died at a certain date around 1855 from, beheading, but they don't explain how or why. And there were family members that went missing at that time that they don't explain how or why. And this is the story that was passed down. And
that's really, really crazy right there, that be able to draw those links like that. And
they said,
if I'm correct, real quick,
go ahead.
Well, if I'm correct, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but on a historical sense, that's only 20 years. It was 1830. Leflore County was where the Trail of Tears was when the Choctaw were forcibly relocated, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, the Choctaw were forcibly relocated, and where their actual part of in the Indian nations, where their actual area was right there where Leflore County is now. It's now named Leflore County. And back then it was one of the better spots in the Indian nations to have, because you had wooded areas. You could hunt, areas for farming. They just had a real good spot, and they were actually settled in. Had made it through the Trail of Tears and had settled in and were going to live a peaceful life, and try and make it there when all this happens, and then having to take care of it themselves, and it's crazy. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, and them Tubby warriors, what was the lore around them? 7 feet tall, 300 pounds, the strength of 5 men, or something like that.
Well over 6. They were well over 6 foot, 300 pounds. They were some big boys, supposedly. And yeah, they were supposedly big and were supposedly gifted warriors. They were good on horseback. And good with the bow,
What was the description of
they were big, tall, 8 foot, hairy beasts that snarled and made a lot of roaring noises and had teeth.
So we're talking
you can see their teeth and claws, and but they were, of the image of Bigfoot, how it was explained.
Wow.
But just very sinister. It wasn't your everyday Harry and Henderson's Bigfoot. This was a malevolent entity, or a bunch of them, a whole family of them.
So you're thinking maybe it was a cover-up? maybe to a degree? Like the tribe didn't even know
As
what to call
far
it?
as I don't think the Indian Nation itself would cover it up, but I would believe that the governing body over the Indian Nation, the government, something like that would cover something like that up, because it would cause hysteria in a spot where they already had issues, moving all these tribes to this area that wasn't their natural home. They had a hard enough time dealing with that, and then having this on top of it, I think would have. And and Choctaw were like any other Indian nation, were going to take care of it themselves if nobody was going to help them. If, say, governing body wasn't going to put forth any effort, they were going to do it themselves. And which is pretty much how any tribe would be. Especially when it comes to their family and loved ones.
Well, that's incredible. Aren't you? Didn't you say you were part native as well?
Yeah, I'm part Creek Indian.
Dude, that's insane. Well, speaking of that, have you guys ever seen anything that you can't explain, Bigfoot or cryptid wise?
I've seen and heard things that Riley can't explain. I've heard roaring in the woods, and I know it's not a bear. I know it's not, bobcat. It's not anything of that nature. It's something else. And I've heard like wood knocking, and I've had that feeling of being watched before, and it not, and it'd be something, it's not like a feeling of a human watching you. It's just something else, Man, like you're in someone's living room and they're watching you.
Well, and I think it was Kegs. Didn't you have a story? You said you seen something really odd once.
James.
James, my bad. I'll cut that.
That's my real world nickname. No, it's all good. It's all good. You can leave it. Anyway, but yeah, I grew up in a heavily wooded area and whatnot. I'm out in the middle of the boonies, on the opposite end of the country from our wonderful Duke here, and yeah, no, I saw a moose get taken down by something, early high school years for me. So we're going on what 12, 15 years ago or whatever. And to this day I can't identify what it was, even just looking back on it from memory. It wasn't a wolf, it wasn't a mountain lion, it wasn't, obviously it wasn't a coyote or a bobcat or anything I was used to seeing. I mean, it was I don't even know how to necessarily describe it. I mean, it was canid like, not a shit ton of hair. I would call it like a grayish color. It was on 4 legs. I never personally saw it go on 2 legs. So I'm not gonna say it can be like, oh, Michigan Dog Man or Beast of Bray Road type shit or werewolf or whatever. But it was weird. I've never seen anything take a moose down so efficiently, single-handedly. And I've seen packs of wolves take them down because we have that kind of shit going on up here. So it was weird. I haven't, even delving into the cryptids of North America, been able to really find anything where I could be like, yeah, that's kind of like what I saw or whatever. So
yeah, I've heard some Native American stories from up around that area about some wolf man type. They, like a skin changer.
Yeah, like a shapeshifter. Yeah.
The skinwalker.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but it stays more of a It looks kind of like a big wolf. They've explained it where this one guy, young man, was out in the field, out with the cows, and went to the back of the field and looked down there, heard a deer get taken down, and look, he walked down there, looked, and seen this creature over the deer, and this creature looked at him, and was staring him eye to eye, and he took out back to the house to get help. And he said he could hear the creature running behind him on all 4s, and he made it to the house, and said
Dad and them got guns out, and they didn't find it. And then later on, some woman next door to them was killed, disappeared. And then his brother, years later, disappeared. And that was how that story went. And there was a Native American who was a park ranger who dealt with something similar to that. Stories I've heard, it's crazy. Makes you wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some animal calls and whatnot in the woods where it's like, I can't quite pinpoint it.
Now,
and it's, I don't want to say I'm a skeptic necessarily. I do like to look at things like through like a bit of a scientific method myself, just to give our listeners a background real quick, I guess. A little bit better introduction of ourselves. Maybe we can go around the table here and all of us can do the same. This being our introductory episode, we'll throw them a bone. So I like hard fact. I like can I see it? Can I smell it? Can I touch it? Can I play with it, observe it, really know it. So that's why like for me, like ghosts and shit like that are real hard for me, because it's like, well, what am I? Yeah, I got cold in here for a minute. There's or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the feeling.
So I'm a yeah, and I take the reaction of my into account. I having grown up and honing, I guess you could call it that sixth sense when you're in the woods. Duke, you probably know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure I'm sure Dean does too.
Yeah, I've been.
It's that feeling that when you're walking in the woods before daylight, you're trying to get to the stand quick because you just have that feeling that you're safer up in the tree.
Yeah.
In the dark, and that's where you need to be. And I don't diddle-daddle with flashlights and stuff like that. I get to where I got to get, and I get up the tree, and which I was doing that here near the house, but I found out why I was doing it because we have a kitty out here that's pretty big. But anyway, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that, like I said, that sixth sense of hey, there's something nearby, or there's something coming, or because humans are only the apex predator because we have tools that do the work for us.
Right.
We've used our brain to get to where we're at. We are not like the fighting premier. So when when you're in the presence of a mountain lion or a bear or something like that, to a degree, if you're a sane individual or whatever, I don't know if that's the right word, but you get that feeling of, oh hey, this animal could kill me if it so chose. And I've bear hunted, I bobcat hunt, I trap, so I'm a little bit more blasé than some people would be with bears, and whatnot. I'm not Timothy Treadwell by any means, where I want to go give one a hug, but
I wrestled a bear.
Well, that's a really good band actually. Back in the day, I wrestled a bear once. I actually think that was a real band, come to think of it. But yeah, no. What's your bear story there, Duke? Was some bar down there or something like that?
Yeah, it was just a old bar where I'm from a town over from my hometown, and it was before it was outlawed, and they had a bear there that night, and I ended up there with some friends, and we all signed up, and I got swatted out of the ring, and I mean swatted, like, to win, all you had to do was get him off his feet, like off his two feet, he would stand up. If you could get him off his feet, you won. Or it was kind of like a pin, and that's a lot easier said than done, especially when he swats you, and I'm at the time was 280 pounds, in excellent shape, and he just lifted me out of the ring onto a table outside the ring. I mean, I went over the top rope. I said, nope, I'm done. He got me. And
that bear was like, this is my house, get out.
And then the craziest thing was at the end, the bear sat at my table that I had, me and my friend's table. The handler or trainer of the bear was come over, sat and had drinks with us, and
they brought the bear his drink, and he's sitting there like watching the conversations go on. And he's like right beside me, and there's this 8-foot something grizzly bear, you know, just holding this big looking keg of apple juice, drinking it. And every time somebody would talk, he would look at them and watch them, and you know, like he was watching the conversation. As the next person would talk, he'd look at that person and lap his apple juice. And I'm just watching him the whole time. Like, this is crazy watching this bear.
Well, I think
like he's in the conversation.
You were telling me a story about the bear that worked for the military or something.
Oh yeah, it was during World War II. It was in Iran where it started. A bear cub mother had been killed, and the cub was sent to a train station in Iran. Well, luckily there was some Polish soldiers there, and they rescued the cub and nursed it back to health because it was ill health, you know, hadn't been fed or nothing. And they nursed it back to health. This bear growing up learned to smoke and drink like the soldiers and imitated the soldiers. And he even slept, in cold nights, he slept with the soldiers in their tents and stuff. And he would, you know, he would walk on 2 legs when the soldiers went on patrol. He would be on 2 legs like he was going on patrol with them. And he even sniffed out a spy that snuck into their camp one night. And he sniffed him out, and when the spy came face to face with the bear, he screamed and told on himself, you know. They called him because he was screaming. And, well, the Polish soldiers had to go to Italy for the, you know, invasion of Italy, you know. And the British were transporting them. Well, the British had a rule that you could have no pets on their ship. Well, the Polish soldiers found a loophole that they enlisted the bear into their army as a private. And he was able to go with them. Well, they were at the Battle of Monte Cassino. And but the Polish had running artillery, and they were having to fire up on a hill to a monastery where the Nazis were holed up. And they were holed up pretty good. It was a hell of a fight. Well, this bear was carrying crates up the hill with gunshots going, bullets flying all around him, you know, explosions. And he was carrying what 4 men would carry, crates of ammunition up to the artillery, back and forth, never stopping. And, you know, what he helped, and he was part of the reason why they won the Battle of Monte Cassino. You know, if it wasn't for this bear keeping the artillery with shells, you know, they couldn't have kept the Nazis pinned down enough for the other troops to, you know, get around and kind of cut them off, you know, kind of throw a pincher thing on them, you know, kind of. And it's crazy because the bear was, after that, was moved, he was given the rank of corporal. So this bear was a corporal after the Battle of Monte Cassino. And then after the war, you know, Poland was gone. So a lot of the Polish went to Scotland, and they put the bear in a zoo in Scotland, and they would visit the bear, you know, all the time, jump over in his cage, wrestle with him, stay the night with him. And they said till the bear died that every time he heard Polish, the bear would stand up and salute. His name was Wojtek. Wojtek the bear. He was, that's a true story. And he was part of the Polish army. No.
Can you imagine being told as like a newer soldier in the army that bear outranks you?
Yeah.
Dude, that's
like seriously. Can you imagine how like I don't want to call it demoralizing for a new recruit or whatever, but like, yeah, that you got to salute to that bear. Absolutely. That bear outranks you.
Well, just imagine the shit that bear's seen. Like I talked to Duke about this a little bit. Like, surely that bear knew what he was doing, like, to a degree. Knew he was at war, you know, just like the bear sat there and followed the conversation. The reason I asked all that is because do you think bears are possibly part of the Native American thing? Maybe it was just like a really smart bear that, I mean, you would think you could be able to tell a bear, but, you know.
I don't personally, just, you know, I got friends that are Native and heavily so, and, you know, deeply ingrained with all the lore and the culture and whatnot. And I don't feel that anyone who is that in touch with nature and the natural world could mistake a bear for an 8-foot tall Bigfoot, especially when there's no grizzlies in Oklahoma.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like was it the southeast corner, I think, of Oklahoma has black bear? Has black bear, but you're talking a 5-6 foot tall bear.
Yeah.
You know, 300, 400, 500 pounds is huge down there. They don't get as big as they do up here. You know, and even here, that's a big bear. You know, I think the state. Well, I know the state record on the state next door in Wisconsin was broken. I think it was 2 years ago. I want to say by a young girl and her dad out on her first bear hunt, and she got what the heck was it, 789-pound black bear.
Wow.
He was like he was almost 7 foot. He was a big boy. I mean, like they had a tractor with its ass end bobbling off the ground, and it wasn't a huge tractor, but it was still a good sized tractor. And like I said, the ass end was bobbling off the ground when they were lifting it up for the picture.
And bears, don't work in groups. Really, there may be a family that some cubs that have grown up, maybe with a mom or something, but your males are pretty much rovers.
They're fairly solitary. I mean, they are more. They group up more than previously thought. I mean, I did speak with a DNR officer who was doing I think they were doing a moose count up in the helicopter, and they flew over an area that was really wide open swamp grass and whatnot, and I think it's like 80% of a bear's diet, 88% or whatever, 86% is swamp grass and whatnot, vegetation.
Yeah.
And he's like, I would expect to see maybe 3-4 bears in there. He goes, I quit counting after 12. He goes, and that was about half of this big. It was a big field. He goes, there had to have been at least 20 bears in this field just munching on swamp grass. So they are more willing to, and I think it's a black bear thing versus like the grizzlies, because they really don't intermingle. But I feel like the black bear does have a little bit more of a social acceptance to it. Personally, that's just my own conclusion I'm drawing from information I've gathered up here. I'm not saying that applies to other parts of the country necessarily, but
And from my experience with black bears, they're kind of a timid. They don't, they may come check out your homestead and maybe take a chicken or something like that, but they don't
some
go
bird
after
seed.
Yeah, they don't go after 1,500-pound steers and stuff like that. Usually that's usually not their target food source. It's more of a something smaller.
They're smart. I will say that they probably have the cunning to do something similar to that if they chose to, but I don't think
so Native Americans,
I don't think there's Yep.
They're really good hunters and warriors, right? So they would know the difference between a bear. If we go back to the Oklahoma story here,
absolutely, especially the Choctaw, because they were a militarized tribe. They were known for their military prowess.
Well, maybe Duke can answer. Like, so in your tribe, like, do you know of any lore inside of your ancestors? Stories like that. Is there any?
I mean, there's certain stories I've vague stories I've heard that I can't remember the exact name of it. I'll have to study into that, but I remember hearing stories of something of some type of like a skunk ape that was talked about, and then there's also what they call the Alabama white thing that is talked about, and I think it was mentioned in.
What's that, like an albino Bigfoot? Or?
Supposedly it's like a white Bigfoot, a Yeti, but in Alabama. That's something we'll have to later on down the road. We'll delve into that one and see what we can come up with. And,
and what's interesting on Bigfoot is if you take and break it down. Excuse me, I apologize.
Bless you.
Thank you. If you break down Bigfoot and you go by areas of the country. So there's different family groups, I guess you'd call it. Like you got your skunk ape in Florida.
Yeah.
You got your, whatever they call it in Texas. You got the Ohio grassman, which is supposed to be the biggest of the Bigfoot. You got the Yahoo or whatever out of Kentucky. You've got the Midnight Howlers. You've got, they all have different names based on their location. They're all vaguely similar. Some of them have different colors. Some are a little bigger, a little smaller. They emit different sounds. They act differently. Some are more aggressive based on lore and description. My personal favorite story is the one from the Sierra Nevada, the camp there.
Well, dude,
where they were like throwing rocks at them and stuff, and they have a really interesting audio recording that's been studied I don't know how many times of what sounds like language, but according to an audio expert, a very renowned one apparently, I will have to dig into that to find out how
I might have met him,
how vetted that is, but was said that the lung capacity required for this, the vocal capacity required is out of the range of like 99% of humans.
Yes,
he goes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, bud. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think he actually came to one of our paranormal conferences. Was he a retired Navy linguistics specialist?
I do believe so, yes.
Yeah, I think I've met the man, actually. That's crazy that you bring that up. Go ahead and keep explaining that, though. Basically, you were saying that...
Yeah. So there's an audio recording of it, and maybe we can find a splice of it to input somewhere in here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's saying that no human can replicate this language, quote unquote, and it's really weird sounding.
Well, I'll tell you
I've
what,
listened to it a couple times and trying to like figure it out, and like it makes the hair on your neck kind of stand up a little bit. It's kind of it's weird.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll play it for him right now.
It's yeah, like I said, it kind of makes the hair on your neck stand up. Like, what the fuck could that be? And the fact that the ranges and the, I guess, the hertz of it, the actual like
Vocal,
the vocal acuity or whatever being shown, isn't capable of being produced by humans. It's interesting, because it doesn't fall under any known animal either. So it's like, okay, what's going on here,
Well, it's actually...
So I always found that one interesting.
Well, and I'll have to look up the guy's name. I know, I think it was like Robert Pyle was one of the first ones, but the guy that I met, I'll have to find his name and I'll put it in here as well. But maybe I'll even link the description to some of his articles. But yeah, he's legit ex-Navy linguistics specialist, believe it or not. So he knew several languages, and apparently, like Kegs is right. Not only does it have vocal patterns like its language, they have something that they're understanding, responding to, but it's, yeah, like you said, it's out of the vocal range of like what we can hear and produce. It's crazy. There's got to be something out there.
Well, it's like around here where I live. There's an acquaintance of mine up the road from me has been seeing something big that's white that walks on two legs. And I said something about the Alabama white thing. Well, he knows nothing about that. He doesn't know anything about this. So he can't be making it up from that Alabama white thing story. And he started seeing it after across the interstate. There's just thousands of acres of woods that nobody really does anything with until this big motor trail, like motocross and mud bogging thing, took it over, and they have went through them thousands of acres of woods and have made trails. And that's when my buddy started seeing this white thing, was when that went up across the interstate. And makes me wonder if something was pushed out of them woods back towards civilization, and that's something I'll have to check out one day.
Oh, that reminds me. You mentioned. Did you know that the FBI actually has been investigating Bigfoot since the 50s, allegedly?
No,
Really?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I guess recently, it was like 2019, they released some documents, but basically they they took some DNA testing from my hair and a bunch of shit. Yeah, and since the 50s, and they just now released some reports like in 2019. I just thought that was crazy interesting. I mean, come on. There's something out there. That's crazy.
Well, and that was actually it might have been the Sierra Nevada as well, since we're still on Bigfoot. Obviously, it's kind of a good first episode for us. They were doing some training up on, I think actually it might have just been Pacific Northwest in general. But there was a army platoon that was out doing survival training, and they ran into a group of what they assumed were other soldiers, also running dark like they were, but they didn't behave like soldiers did, because they gave a laser communication, like almost like Morse code, and they didn't respond. So they were like, "Well, what is this now?" So they held tight, and they were listening, and they're like, "This isn't people. What the fuck are we looking at?" And then they as they were going to move in to investigate, they all ran off. Well, they got back to their base command after I think it was like a week and a half in the wilderness for their survival training, and they mentioned it, and they were brought direct to the base commander's office, and were told, like, you guys shut the fuck up about this.
Dude, that's
And that was the end of it. And they were sent back out the door, like, you guys don't mention this, don't ever talk about it, don't nothing, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I know of a story. The other day I was watching a story from a guy, and this guy was over in Louisiana, the place where his buddy hunts. They went over hunting, kind of like down in the bayou, kind of, and it's the area they hunted. Part of it you had to get to it by boat, and his buddy said that there was Bigfoot in there where they were hunting, and he was like, "Nah, whatever, they didn't really believe in it." And he said he seen something. Then they went back in there. We're walking in there together, and you hear a bunch of stuff in front of them in the woods. You could hear rustling and wood knocking, and different noises, and they heard the boat being drugged behind them, and decided they needed to get out of there. And then, like I said, they ended up going back to the little boat they were in, and like a John boat, and the boat had been drug up onto the dry land. It wasn't like tied off or nothing anymore. It was like drug up on dry land, and it rummaged through, and things that and so they felt like they were surrounded by like bunches of them, and they ended up getting out of there. And this was not too long ago.
Really?
well. I mean, so being around the paranormal world, so know the land. They don't know the difference. Come on. If it was a bear attack, they would have put bear attack, for example.
Yeah,
I mean?
They don't embellish. They don't lie. Pass down stories may exaggerate or embellish a little bit, but it's based on truth. It's they don't just come up with fiction.
And there's a ton of cave paintings, right? There's cave paintings of Bigfoot everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all throughout the world, you have different areas. The Yeti. To me, it's too common around the world, especially back then. For it not to be something to it.
Right. Well, and for the skeptics out there, like Michael Shermer, those types, they want to talk about how it's some kind of a psychological bias or inherent fear from when we were basically cavemen, and I can understand that argument to a degree, but there's just like, I mean, if the FBI is investigating them, it's, there's something. I'm just I don't know.
Yeah. Well, another thing is there's things out there you can't explain. I haven't seen Bigfoot per se, but I have been in a tracking situation where I'm on my hands and knees in a briar thicket and coming to this little opening in the briar thicket, and I'm face to face with the only thing I can tell you it looked like was King Julian from the Penguins of Madagascar.
Yeah. Okay.
I come face to face with this thing standing up with a long tail and this big eyes staring me eye to eye. And I backed smooth up out of that thicket and told him we're going around and see if we can find blood. And
you found a chupacabra.
I'm not going back in there with what I call a catamount. I'm not going back in there with him. And cause he had me, he had the drop on me.
That's insane. Well, and for people who don't know, you're usually running around in a leaf suit too. So
yeah, I've been mistaken for Bigfoot. Actually, they caught on film, and I've seen the film and didn't want to tell the guy it was me, but I was ready to get on about it. But it would be me in a ghillie suit.
Yeah, sitting there like, oh, that one's debunked. We're good. Next.
I may have a picture of you in a ghillie suit. I might flash that up actually.
But I got a kick out of that video when I seen it that time. He was swearing he was gonna call it skunk ape on camera, and I'm looking at it.
That's funny.
It totally was. It was totally Bigfoot. Well, and you're a big boy too, aren't you? You're like 6'4" or something, 6'5".
I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. So, and I have a size 14, almost 15 foot. So, yeah, I mean, in a ghillie suit makes you look bigger. So, in a ghillie suit, I would look somewhat wild in the bush.
All right, so some big old thing, 7 foot, about 400 pound looking coming at you. You haven't been shot, probably.
Oh, I got a story for you. Now, this was years ago back home, hunting on our land, and this is one of the rare times it snowed. It was snowing, and I was out there hunting, and I had on my ghillie suit. Well, the snow was starting to freeze. I didn't know my whole ghillie suit was nothing but an ice pack.
Oh, no.
And this old lady was, I got turned around in the land with all the snow falling and ice everywhere. And I come out, I had been stalk hunting, and I come out into this opening, and it was this backyard of this nice, old, country lady I knew. I didn't know I knew of her, and her 2 grandchildren.
Oh, shit.
And I stepped out of the bushes, and she was looking at me. She was sitting on the back porch. The kids were playing in the snow. All I heard her say was, "Claude, have mercy. Help me get in the house. There's a thing right there." And they all ran in the house and locked the door. And I'm like, looking around like, what did she see? And I didn't realize when I got back to the truck, my dad was there, and he's laughing like, "Hey, you're a wild-looking sight." And I looked could see in the glass of the truck, I was all covered. Even my mask and stuff had ice hanging on it. And I looked like a Bigfoot then with ice.
Big old Yeti.
I guess it'd be good. Big old Yeti. It's just a Claude, have mercy. Get in the house.
You doing the crip walk or something?
No, I was a Bigfoot with a gun.
Oh no, he knows weapons.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
Oh man, freaking.
So, but yeah, for everyone listening, we're not just some like city bumpkins out, trying to make a talk show about, and sound like a bunch of jackasses. We actually kind of want to take what we've learned in the woods and whatnot and apply them to different stories that are around and myths, legends, theories, and just kind of see what we get from looking at them from like a woods person's point of view, if you will.
Yeah, we're not. So make it clear we're not the weekend hunter that is sitting in a shooting house type all the time. We're, I used to hunt, and I'll give them an area, the Mobile Delta, River Delta, which is areas that you'd have to get to by boat, and very hard hunting. on these big islands and areas that nobody goes to, you know, hog hunting or deer hunting or, you know, things like of that nature. You know, it's not just a, you know, weekend hunter. We spent the bulk of our lives in the woods.
Yeah, you guys definitely have. I did growing up for sure. I mean, until I was about 22. You know, I was Southern Missouri, so I never seen a Bigfoot. Pretty sure I seen an elk, or heard of an elk anyway. I didn't get to see it, but yeah, that's close as I've been, boys.
So, but yeah, again, before we shut this first episode down, this has been fun, been interesting. Again, Duke is a wonderful historian with excellent research. Please, everyone, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the noti bell. Helps us out a ton. Also, jump in that email, send us your stories. We can't wait to go over what you guys send us next time on CMM Talk Show.